Sling TV has something for everyone. It really just depends on what kind of mood you're in. No matter what you're looking for, you can watch it with Sling. Sports, news, and today's hottest shows. Plus, you can explore thousands of movies and shows on demand. And getting Sling is easy. Sign up and start watching in just 5 minutes. Stream on any device and record up to 50 hours with your included DVR space. Plus, you won't get locked into a long-term contract. Check out sling.com for special offers. Sling, the TV you love for a price you love. Try it today. Welcome to the Andy Staples Show, presented by Sling. Another crazy college football Saturdays in the books. Ari Wasserman, you're dressed as an inmate. I assume there was a Halloween party involved.
Yes.
It is that time of year.
Yes. Have you ever watched Kentucky, Tennessee's last quarter in a bar full of people dressed up in Halloween costumes? Because I did.
That sounds like a lot more interesting place to watch it than Neyland Stadium, because
Kentucky, that's right.
Kentucky made that game pretty boring by not being very good at football on Saturday.
Yeah. So, okay. So you were there. I don't want to talk first. You talk first. What are we looking at here? Are we looking at a national title contender here?
We're looking at a really good team. Tennessee's really, really good. That offense, the tempo it runs at, seeing it in person, I understand why that offensive lineman was puking during the Alabama game. I also understand why defenses just get worn out by this team, because they don't give you any time to breathe. And especially if you can't move the ball. Like Kentucky moved the ball really well on an early drive. Chris Rodriguez was mashing it down the field. And then all of a sudden, it was like they couldn't move the ball at all. And it was and Tennessee just kept going. And then Will Levis starts to press. He starts throwing interceptions, and then Tennessee winds up with great field position, and then it's even easier. So, yes, they're very good. Are they going to be able to score like that against Georgia? I don't know. Are they going to give up more points against Georgia than they did against Tennessee? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, well, let me say this. Tennessee's 44 is fine, right? Like we expected, 30s, upper 30s, right. Low 40s. It's the 6. Right? Like that's the thing, right? Like, that's the 6. So like when I'm looking at Tennessee here and I'm thinking like, can this team beat Georgia? It's like, we know we're going to get something offensively out of them. Like, I think we're at the point now where it's like, they are legitimately good. I'm wearing my volunteer orange. Like I really do believe that this team can score on anybody in the country. Now, it might not look the way it looked in the Alabama game, because they're playing Georgia's defense, but they should be able to put up 4 or 5 touchdowns on Georgia, right? At some point.
I would think so. Now, I think Georgia can probably put up 4 or 5 touchdowns on them too. Watching Georgia against Florida. Now, granted, Florida's defense has not been particularly great, but we've seen Georgia do this to other teams too. They have so many ways to beat you. Georgia is a very diverse offense. It's not, it's not as quick strike as Tennessee's. It's not as electrifying. Like, it baffles me how you can practice for a week for Tennessee, and then in the first quarter, you have a linebacker covering Jalen Hyatt. But that's what they do to you. Yeah. They move around so fast, and they hide people, and they motion them. Or they, like in this case, Jalen Hyatt was stacked behind Cedric Tillman 3 plays in a row. They did 3 different things. And the third thing was they saw that Jalen Hyatt was matched up against a linebacker and were like, well, he doesn't have a chance. Boom.
Yeah. And it's like, we could start right now with the Tennessee legitimate national championship contender hype train. We're going to get the answer to that question in a week from now. Yeah. But they beat the crap out of a very good football team today.
They did. Kentucky, well, very good. I don't know if I go that far, but Kentucky is a solid team. We've seen them play very well against good competition, and they looked completely unequipped.
Is Kentucky the 3rd best team in the Big Ten?
No, I think Penn State.
I mean, think about it. Think about it out loud.
Yes. I think Penn State would be better than Kentucky.
Okay. So 4th?
Maybe. I think Kentucky, Illinois would be a hell of a game. I really do.
Yeah. We'll get to the Illini. We'll get to my guys.
We need to.
But I'm saying, like, I'm not trying to pretend like Kentucky is some sort of, SEC champion contender type program, but like they made them look hopeless. And and there are a lot of great teams that are trying to win a national championship right now that don't make teams as good as Kentucky look hopeless.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And the other piece of it was this was such an easy game to be a look-ahead game, a trap game, all of that.
There were 19 reasons we could have come up with before the game, and we tried to say, hey, why this is going to be close.
And they came out completely, Tennessee I'm talking about, came out completely prepared, on point in every aspect of the game. They were better defensively than we've seen them all season. I mean, they were forcing turnovers. And yeah, I was thoroughly impressed, and I cannot wait to watch Tennessee, Georgia next week.
This is the thing, Andy. I'm just going to ask you point blank. Could this team beat Georgia?
Yes. This team can also get beat by Georgia, but this team can beat Georgia.
We know that they absolutely could get beat by Georgia, but the fact that they can beat them makes it. I'm very excited to see what the spread of that game is going to be, and I honestly know that we all know the scene that was set for the Alabama Tennessee game a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
is this the game of the season?
Yes, till the next one.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, the game of the season might be the game right after Tennessee, Georgia. It might be Alabama, LSU.
Yeah, I don't know if they, depending on what happens. Yeah. It's just like, Alabama, Tennessee was the game of the season because it was exciting between two unbeaten teams, and it was a litmus test for Tennessee. But this seems to me to be the game that has featured the two best teams of any game that we've watched this season.
It is, and the winner of this game is in a prime position. Now, they still have to win out in the regular season.
The loser of the game is in a prime position.
But the winner of the game is in the position Georgia was in last season, where they might be able to lose the SEC championship game and still make the playoff.
Yeah, I think that the loser of a close game in this one might be in better position than the winner.
I disagree. The winner will make the playoff if they finish undefeated in the regular season, whether they win the SEC championship game.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And especially
the loser might not have
Tennessee.
To play in the SEC championship game and get in if the winner wins the championship game.
Right, but this is especially true if the winner's Tennessee, because Tennessee will have wins against Alabama, LSU, and Georgia at that point.
So, if Tennessee beats Georgia, they're basically in the playoffs.
I think so. Well, they'd have to win the rest of their games, but that means beating Missouri and Vanderbilt. Yeah,
that's what I mean. But this is like a play-in game for them.
Yeah.
But even if they lose a close game, they can be the biggest Georgia fans for the rest of the year and still get in.
Correct.
Yeah.
Especially if Alabama winds up winning the West, Georgia beats Alabama, dipsy-doo, dunkaroo.
Yeah. Yeah, man. How about Josh Heupel, dude?
It's unbelievable. And we were asking some of the players tonight after the game, does this surprise you? And one of the players, Slaughter, the guy who had an interception and then had the massive hit that forced the first interception, he goes, yeah, I'm surprised. It's the most honest answer ever. He's like, I am very surprised that all of this has happened.
Yeah. It's just so ahead of schedule, but it's fun. I honestly do think that this is a very interesting question, but what did Tennessee do to get this good this quickly? And is it a blueprint that can be duplicated?
I don't know if it can be duplicated, because I think they have a very special quarterback in Hendon Hooker who is perfect for this offense. And then some fairly unique talents in this offense. But as we've discussed multiple times on this show, if they wind up becoming a playoff team, and if they are really good enough to compete for the national title, it makes them an outlier.
Yeah, no,
they would be the first team outside the blue chip ratio.
It's the Stars Matter outlier nightmare.
Exactly. So it will be very interesting to see going forward. This is the question. So many people asked me this week, and it's weird to hear it now, because it's like, okay, let's just enjoy watching this for now. But people go, well, what happens when Hendon Hooker's gone? Can they do this when Hendon Hooker's gone? I don't know.
Just enjoy the ride, guys.
I have no idea.
Yeah. He's by far the unquestionable number one in the Heisman ballot right now, right?
I would think so. I would think so. And then, CJ Stroud, they won the game. Ohio State did at Penn State, but there were moments where you're like, oh, CJ, look, there's a guy coming right at you. Please notice him before you get clobbered.
Yeah. So are we transitioning?
We can. What would you like to move on to? You want to go to Ohio State, Penn State? You want to go to Florida, Georgia? Or let's go to
Georgia seems to be the normal easiest transition, but
let's go to Michigan State because there is stuff to discuss after that game.
Yeah,
I don't know if they showed this in the bar at the party, but I'm sure you saw it on your phone. The scuffling post game at Michigan, and I mean I say scuffling. It looked like a bunch of Michigan State players beating up a Michigan player is what the video looked like, and that was Matt Charbonneau from the Detroit News posted that video, and I mean, I'll show it if you're watching the YouTube stream. This is from Matt Charbonneau, the Detroit News, and if you'll be able to hear it also. But if you're watching the YouTube stream, you'll see it.
Oh my God.
That's a bunch of Michigan State players and one Michigan player, and it was one of the number ones. You can't tell which number one it is on the video, but there's a lot of Michigan State players.
And Jim Harbaugh said after the game that they were assaulted.
He did. We have Ward Manuel. This is Angelique Shingelis from the Detroit News posted this from the press conference. So here's Jim Harbaugh will be the first person you're speaking, and the next person you hear speaking will be the athletic director, Ward Manuel.
Locker room, and we started addressing it. And then the video surfaced.
What happened after the game is completely unacceptable. I've talked to the commissioner. He is looking into it. We have the police are also looking into it because they've seen the video. And so they're addressing it. We will leave it in their hands, but this is not how we should interact after a game. This is not the way another team should grab a player and do what they did. It's completely and utterly unacceptable. We will let Big Ten and law enforcement handle it, but this is not what a rivalry should be about. And it's not how it should be remembered. We won on the field. This man and his team and those players went out there and won. For that to happen is unacceptable. And that's all I'm going to say. I'll leave it to Kevin and law enforcement to handle from here on out.
Could you just say the players so we know who they are?
Guys,
you can look at the video.
Yeah, so they have turned this over to the cops, I guess, and we'll see what happens. This is the second time in a few weeks that there's been action in the tunnel after a Michigan game.
I was just going to say it's kind of ironic because James Franklin and Jim Harbaugh kind of had press conference battling duo quotes on this, and for this to happen so quickly after that, it's just kind of, it's weird.
Well, so there's one tunnel at Michigan Stadium. That is very unusual. Lester Lee on our live chat asked, "Is that normal to have one tunnel?" No, it's not normal. Most teams have most stadiums have a home tunnel and a visiting tunnel, and they don't have to cross or wind up going through the same tunnel. Michigan only has the one, but I will say this because, yeah, it's dumb they only have one tunnel, but they've only had one tunnel for 100 years, and it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, I mean, I covered a lot of Ohio State Michigan games, and there's jawing in that tunnel all the time. Like that's part of it. I almost feel like that's part of the charm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you just don't you don't need to gang up on opposing players in the tunnel. Like, period. That's it.
Yeah, there should be no physical violence.
There's another incident, another video floating around too. So it's like this is beyond just trash talking. Yeah, go ahead and trash talk in the tunnel, but no, that's stupid. Especially, look, you just lost. Where was that aggression on the field when you were getting shut out for the last 3 quarters?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's like part of that is kind of a cool thing where like the two teams go through the same tunnel and they're kind of rubbing shoulders before the game. And, trash talk is part of football, Andy, like that's
absolutely,
that's part of the game, and there's plenty of anecdotes of people saying funny things and getting in faces and screaming and hollering and stuff. But when it gets to that point, it's like what Ward Manuel said. It's just like, it's too far. So it's definitely a shame that that's kind of the story of the game because, the one thought that I had and I wanted to bring to you on the podcast was that absolutely nothing surprising happened on this Saturday, in my opinion. I don't know. Is there a surprising result to you? And
K-State destroying
that was
Oklahoma State
surprising.
the way they did was surprising. Not that they won, but that they won 48-0 was surprising.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But I thought it was a pretty revelatory Saturday in terms of who's really in this thing and who's really good. And it didn't take any upsets to kind of get to that point. So, like, to me, it's just like this Michigan State game was another pillar in terms of what we're learning about these teams. And the fact that we're talking about this is kind of a crappy thing.
It takes away from Michigan absolutely dominating the last 3 quarters of that game. Now, would I've liked to seen them punch in a little bit more from when they got in the red zone? Maybe, but they dominated the back half of that game. Absolutely dominated it.
Yeah, I think it was 7-3 at the end of the first quarter, and then at that point, Michigan State had nothing.
Yeah,
and this Big Ten East battle is going to be really, really good. I think that we learned a lot about Michigan, and maybe we knew all this stuff about Michigan, but we saw it again. I think we learned a little bit about Ohio State, and watching these two teams in November is going to be a hell of a time. And, that to me, I thought was the prevailing theme.
Yeah. Well, let's talk Ohio State. They go to Penn State. As you always say, grab ass ensued. It was not a pretty game for Ohio State.
It's 4 quarters of grab ass.
It's 3.5.
Yeah,
Ohio State turned on the afterburners at one point. Penn State scores that touchdown to take the lead, and then just kaboom! Like Ohio State is like somebody told them, guys, you're a lot better, right? And then it just takes off.
Yeah, I actually thought, for a second there that Ohio State could lose when they punched it in there with Katron Allen there in the fourth quarter. But it just goes to show you, and I'm not going to turn this into like a Stars Matter situation, but it's like their 5-star defensive lineman that they waited till July to get 2 years ago. Had 2 sacks, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery or whatever, 2 interceptions and a pick 6. And she's like, well, that's why you wait until July to figure out whether somebody wants to go there. So, I don't know what James Franklin does. And I think that he deserves a tremendous amount of credit, but he's got an impeccable knack for pulling Ohio State into these weird grab-ass filled games. But when push comes to shove, and the problem with Penn State has always been, for the most part, I know they beat them one year, but they can't close. And if you're at home, get a raucous crowd, especially loud crowd for a noon game, and you're winning by whatever you're winning by in the fourth quarter, you got to figure out a way to close that football game. And, I think that it was another illustration of Ohio State struggling offensively in big games, which is kind of an interesting pattern when you look at like their crazy offensive statistics and how good they are. It's like if you go back and look at their biggest games, it doesn't necessarily translate. I also think too that Ohio State couldn't run the ball for 3 quarters, which I think is very hard to picture considering what Michigan did.
Yeah.
And it brings up very interesting questions about whether or not Ohio State is a poor matchup, or Michigan is a poor matchup for them the way they were a year ago. So somebody asked me, and you saw this on Twitter, what do you think of Ohio State? And I thought, this game is kind of typical of what we've seen between these two. I don't think that you can draw a straight line and say Ohio State stinks because Penn State's not as good as they typically are, or might not be a top 2 team in the Big Ten East. But, this is kind of what I expected. If you listen to the show this week, it's literally what I outlined. That said, if you would have asked me on Friday, do you think Ohio State's going to beat Michigan? I would have been like, yeah, I think it's going to be the typical back to normal type things. And I'm not necessarily sure, Andy, that I think that anymore.
Yeah, I interesting watching CJ Stroud deal with pressure, because I was not as worried about him against Michigan this year because no Hutchinson, no Ajabo, but this Michigan D-line is capable of getting pressure. And it wasn't so much that he was facing more pressure than usual. It was some of this was getting home, and he was not recognizing when it was coming sometimes. And like, you never see that with Bryce Young. You don't see that with Hendon Hooker. Like, you don't see a situation where they take the snap and the guy's on him and they haven't even noticed him. That doesn't happen with those people. So that part I worry about, because that's what got them last year. They have those amazing receivers. They had an incredible receiving core last year, but CJ Stroud was just getting battered. And so that part I'm worried about in this Michigan game. Now, I will say, like, Michigan struggling in the red zone early against Michigan State, like, you can't do that against Ohio State because they will stuff you, and you're not going to get
both teams are kicking field goals the last, this game, and Ohio State was a week ago.
Yeah.
Now, both teams are kicking field goals in the red zone, and the thing that I think is most interesting about this, Andy, is the discussion point about Ohio State a year ago when they lost to Michigan was that they weren't a very tough team, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they couldn't get it done in the trenches.
They're tough now. They're tough now.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be able to move the ball on the ground when you play Michigan. I think you got to move the ball on the ground at least some when you're playing anybody that's very good. And I'm very curious to see if this team, this Ohio State team, is as quote-unquote finesse as they were a year ago, or if they can out-muscle a team like Michigan, that's their entire identity. Does that make sense?
It makes
it makes me wonder if Ohio State could be soft again.
I don't think they are. So here's what I think. I don't think it's going to be a Michigan blowout win. I think Michigan can win this game, but I think it will be much closer than it was last year. So, and again, I'm excited about that. I think, and we're going to get a chance to see how tough.
Well, the question should be if Ohio State's going to get back to blowing them out.
I don't care if that. I'm not worried about that. At this point, I'm worried about which of these teams are going to make the playoff. Could they both make the playoff? Like, it's possible that they're both pretty close to one another, and that's great. You're looking at that. I think you got that former Ohio State beat writer lens on. I don't care if Ohio State gets back to crushing them or not. I want it to be a close rivalry.
But the crushing them isn't because of, when you think about what that means for Ohio State in the rivalry, the crushing them is Michigan on even footing, which I think is a revelatory discussion. Like, if you think that Michigan is built evenly to what Ohio State is right now, that is a testament to what they are. Because last year you could have said, well, Ohio State wasn't really as good as they usually were. Michigan was a team that had very good defensive linemen who out-muscled them on the trenches. They fixed it with a new defensive coordinator. Ohio State's going to out-talent them when they face them in the horseshoe this year. Or if you're looking at it now on October 30th as we're recording this and thinking, when you look at these two teams, Michigan isn't much of an underdog. You know what I mean? Like, Michigan is right there built with Ohio State, and beating them would not be a shock the way that it was a year ago. That's the thing that I think is interesting. Like, Ohio State's not a 17-point favorite in this game. The fact of the matter is they might not be a favorite at all. And what that means for what Michigan is, I think, is an interesting discussion to have.
It is, and we can have it when they play, because I
know, but like right now you can ask, like I'm asking you, is like Michigan equal to Ohio State and what in your mind?
I don't know. They're going to play and we'll find out.
Yeah. Well,
I know that's not great pod, but that's the truth. We can flap our gums about it all we want.
Well, no, I know. I'm just asking what your perception of Michigan is. Like, your perception of Michigan is that they're a very good team?
I think they're a very good team, and I think they and Ohio State are very close to one another.
Yeah,
I do not feel the separation between them like I used to.
Yeah, and that separation was massive 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So Ohio State's got to ask itself, if the recruiting rankings don't indicate that, what is occurring here to make that happen?
Exactly. Let's talk now about the fourth team, because I feel like there's a very clear top four, even though there are two other undefeated teams, Clemson and TCU. But I feel like there's a very clear top four. So we've talked about Tennessee, we've talked about Ohio State, talked about Michigan. So let's talk Georgia. Georgia goes to Jacksonville, beats up on Florida. We expected that to happen. I do feel like Georgia just sort of said, hey, by the way, this is how diverse our offense can be. We can score in any way we want. That part, if you're Tennessee, is like, okay, that's one of those gulp-inducing moments. Like, they can score any way they want. Like, Darnell Washington is a monster, just a monster.
Yeah, I saw that Florida scored 17 points in the third quarter to get back from 28-3 to 28-20 and make it a game going into the fourth quarter, it feels like. But then the second they score that 17th point, which by the way was all gifted on turnovers, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Then all of a sudden Georgia's like, okay, that was cute, and then
Yeah,
just
we're done
stomped
here.
on them. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I can excuse dumb turnovers any day of the week. I think that Georgia is obviously, I would put Georgia ahead of Ohio State. I think that Georgia is probably 1, Tennessee is 2, and then Ohio State might be 3.
And then would you have Michigan 4 or Clemson or TCU at 4?
I think you would actually make the case that Michigan's ahead of Ohio State right now.
Okay.
And then I would probably have Tennessee 4.
You had Tennessee 2.
Oh, sorry. What did I say? So I said, okay. Sorry. Long day. I'm wearing Tennessee fall orange. I think I would have Georgia 1, Tennessee 2, Ohio State 3.
Michigan 4?
No, Ohio State would be 4. Michigan would be 3.
There we go.
Yeah,
I knew we were
got
getting there eventually.
Yeah, I'm not very good at math, but Michigan, I think, has deserved the credit and the right to be ahead of Ohio State right now. And I know that's a weird thing to say.
They play. Who cares?
It doesn't matter. It's semantics. But,
yeah.
The thing is, like, Michigan deserves the respect from the people who are watching this to say, hey, this isn't a fake good team. This is a really, really good football team that has a chance to beat and might be less than a 3-point underdog when they play at Ohio State on the road this year.
It's a more important argument if it's two teams that we think are going to be, in line for potentially a playoff berth, and one could be 4 and one could be 5, and they don't play each other. Then it's like, oh God, we got to figure this out. But like with Michigan and Ohio State, they play. Well, they'll figure it out. And there's some other games along the way. Like, I'm excited for Michigan and Illinois. I think that's going to be a fun game. I'm ready for that.
Nebraska didn't have a chance to win that game once the second quarter was over. Like, it was not even remotely worth watching.
Nope. Brett Bielema is suffocating people. It is tremendous. I mean, we talk about Josh Heupel in year 2. Brett Bielema in year 2 is dominant right now. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the surprising results, and that is a just bloodbath in the Little Apple. And there was one more. There was a team that turned the ball over 6 times in 1 quarter.
Oh, boy.
We'll be right back. Sling TV has something for everyone. All your favorite shows on your favorite channels, all right at your fingertips. What you watch is up to you. It really just depends on what kind of mood you're in. So if you're looking for sports, Sling's got you covered with pro and college football and basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, golf, racing, and so much more. Sling also has reality TV, so you can keep up with the latest gossip with today's hottest shows on channels like TLC, Bravo, MTV, and more. And don't forget about news. Get up to date with today's most trusted sources like MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News. If you're feeling adventurous, explore thousands of movies and shows on demand. So what kind of mood are you in? No matter your answer, Sling has what you need. Getting Sling is easy. Sign up and start watching in just 5 minutes. You can stream on any device, and you can record up to 50 hours using your included DVR space. And the best part is you can pause or customize your subscription at any time. Check out sling.com for special offers. Sling, the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today. If you've been watching the show on the YouTube stream at any point in the last year, you've seen me wearing these polos with 3 little X's along the shoulder blades. Those are from Roan, and they're probably the best fitting polos I've ever worn. Roan was not an advertiser until just this week, but I've been buying their stuff for a while. The Delta Piquet polo, one of my favorites. The commuter pant, the commuter jogger, they make you look professional, but you feel like you're wearing athleisure. And that commuter pant, it looks great. That commuter jogger, you want to look professional, but say, I also have sexy ankles. It's tremendous. Now, Roan is revolutionizing the dress shirt because it's hard to find really good fitting dress shirts, but they've added the commuter dress shirt. It hugs you in all the right places. You don't look like you've got a big paunch, and it feels like the most comfortable shirt you own. It feels just as good as any of your t-shirts or your polos. And they also have Gold Fusion anti-odor technology. You'll be smelling fresh and clean all day. And on top of that, Roan is 100% machine washable. You can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. This is great because it's stuff you can wear to work. It's also stuff you can wear in your leisure time. Believe it or not, sometimes I have to wear pants on the job, and it's usually a pair of Roan pants. And I will tell you, the machine washable thing, absolutely true. Having owned a bunch of their stuff, it holds up very, very well after the washing and the drying. So head to Rhone.com. That's RHONE.com/Andy and use the promo code Andy to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you go to Rhone.com, RHONE.com/Andy and use the code Andy. It's time to find your corner office comfort. Welcome back. Let's head to the Little Apple for the most shocking result of the day. Kansas State 48, Oklahoma State nothing. This is an earth-shaking result in the Big 12 because this felt like an elimination game in the Big 12 race. Now, it's only Oklahoma State's second conference loss, and I do think somebody may be able to play in the championship game with 2 conference losses, but the problem is Oklahoma State has already lost to Kansas State and TCU, which I think makes it problematic for them. But 48-0. I mean, we saw Oklahoma State gut out a big win against Texas last week. We asked on the show, on the pick show with Nicole, like, do they have anything left in the tank? And it was, yeah, we think they have something left in the tank. But K-State was starting a backup quarterback. But man, Ari, when I saw Deuce Vaughn take off of that 62-yard run with 8:15 to go in the first quarter to make it 14-0, I was like, uh-oh. This may not be the Cowboys' day.
We were both very wrong about this. I think we were.
Oh, yeah. We thought Oklahoma State would win.
You know what this could be? I think this could be an accumulation of injuries and just the third week after 2 really tough games.
Yeah.
But 48-0. Was that what the score was? 48-0?
48-0.
I mean, like, you don't see that result in the Big 12 very often.
No.
That was really, really shocking. And, I think that it also asserts who we believe should be the top 2 teams or have the the dark or the straight line path to the Big 12 championship game. And this will be a nice segue into the TCU because they want to maybe a closer game than we expected game against West Virginia. But man,
bad beat. They covered well, bad beat for some people. They covered on a 4th down play late in the 4th quarter. They're just trying to run, hold the ball to run out the clock. And but yeah, TCU got challenged today by West Virginia, which we
kind of thought,
tough to play.
I guess the question here is whether or not you think TCU is going to get bitten by somebody. They got 4 games left. They got a home game against Tech on Saturday, at Texas, at Baylor, at Iowa State. That's a tough 4-game stretch for them,
especially at Baylor. Baylor seems to have found itself a little bit.
Yeah, but Kansas State, man.
And Kansas State's playing Texas next week. Now, that's in Manhattan. I am curious about, is Adrian Martinez going to be back? Does it matter? Are they better with Will Howard? It's hard to tell.
I mean, does it change how you feel about TCU?
That they beat Kansas State?
Yeah, that Kansas State did this. I mean, I don't know
I feel very good about TCU. I think TCU's good. If TCU is undefeated, they're making the playoff. If TCU has 1 loss and is the Big 12 champ, I think there's still a chance they're making the playoff.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if it's like the loss is a close loss at Texas.
Yeah, something like that. I'm a little worried for Texas. I mean, this is a juggernaut they're going to see up in Manhattan.
Yeah. Geez. Yeah, I did not see 48-0 coming, but this kind of could be a fun game that we could play maybe at the end of the show. But it's like alive for the playoff, yes or no? Just go down the list of.
I like it. That is absolutely, and because we're gonna have the first playoff ranking on Tuesday night. By the way, if you weren't listening the other day, we're changing things around a little bit with the schedule. So Ari and I are going to go live on Tuesday night right after the ranking show. Normally we record a show Wednesday that drops on Thursday. So we're going to do that on Tuesday night. If you're listening in podcast form, you'll get it on Wednesday morning. If you want to watch it live, though, it will come on right after the ranking show, and the committee chair explains what's going on. We'll come on and complain about all that stuff. So it'll be a blast. I think Scott Dockerman's going to be on with us when we do that. So he'll be our voice of reason. But that is,
I got the hot take spewing out of my mouth already, bud.
It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. Not as amazing, though, as 6 turnovers in 1 quarter, which is what Wake Forest did in a 48-21 loss to Louisville. Is there more of a Jekyll and Hyde team this season than Louisville?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
They have had a weird year. They got shelled by Syracuse. They had that weird loss to Florida State on Friday night. They somehow managed to lose to BC.
The BC loss is what makes your point.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But then they crushed Pittsburgh, and nobody had been able, like, Clemson barely beat Wake Forest. They hammered Wake Forest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in fairness, Wake Forest turned the ball over 6 times in a quarter. Did they put up 35 on them? Yeah, 35 in the third quarter.
They did.
If somebody kept getting you Christmas gifts, I mean, eventually you're gonna use them. So I don't know how to assign praise on this. Do you assign praise to Louisville for forcing the turnovers and capitalizing on them?
They played a role in the turnovers. It wasn't like Sam Hartman
it was
like,
grab ass if you watched them. It was all
here's
grab
the
ass.
football. It was not all grab ass.
You can't turn the ball over 6 times in a quarter and be no grab ass.
There is some grab ass
Okay,
involved,
yeah.
yes, but some credit needs to be given to the Cardinals here.
Can we get grab ass to be like a sponsored term? Because I was using it a lot on Twitter today, and everyone's like, "I've never heard a human being your age use the word grab ass."
I don't think so, Ari. I think that would be very problematic as a sponsored term. I don't think anybody would be willing to sponsor that particular term.
It's an okay term.
2022.
No, it's not.
It's
I
not.
think it's an offensive term.
It is if you grab somebody's ass that doesn't want to be grabbed.
I mean, I guess it's
a
just a
problem.
term of just like running around and messing around with people. That's how I viewed it. My gym teacher used to say it, but Bill Landis brought it back into my life 3 or 4 years ago, and I thought it was hilarious to hear it again because I hadn't heard it since high school, and here we are.
That's exactly right.
But it is, Wake Forest. My editor Mitch Light's son goes to Wake Forest, and he was talking about Wake Forest going to the Orange Bowl, and Mitch, who's very up to date and up to speed with college football, how to tell his kid to kind of pump the brakes a little bit. And I think he kind of learned, especially that you don't assign the Orange Bowl to your team in October. So that was a rough loss for them. And, I think the fact of the matter is it's a stark reminder too, that even when your team is built the way that Wake Forest is built, coming off a very good year, that when they're exceeding expectations at the rate that they're exceeding them, and it kind of is the same thing for Kansas too. When you've got these teams that talent-wise probably don't stack up with some of the elite teams in the country, that eventually you're going to get bitten, and Wake Forest got bitten. But the problem with Wake Forest is that a lot of it was self-imposed, crap that got up to them. So it's just a reminder of how freaking hard it is, not just for Wake Forest, but for anybody to go undefeated, especially in their conference schedule.
Well, you just made the case for Clemson, though, because
I know.
They might so speaking of Clemson, they play Notre Dame next week. We will stay in the ACC and the quasi-ACC because Notre Dame went to Syracuse and put a whooping on the Orange. And if you watch that game early on, Notre Dame was just running the ball straight up the middle, and Syracuse could do nothing to stop it. Syracuse made a quarterback change. They went with Carlos Del Rio Wilson. It worked for a minute, but it wasn't good enough. And Notre Dame wins 41-24. After what we saw today, do you think Notre Dame has a chance to beat Clemson when Clemson comes to visit South Bend next weekend?
Well, I mean, aren't you just going to use a transitive property to answer that question, since it's an infallible tool when analyzing college football? I mean, I was surprised that Notre Dame did what they did to Syracuse because they had a hard time scoring on anybody this year.
Except North Carolina,
which, hey, buddy,
by the way, is 7-1 now.
They won again. So, I mean, eventually you're going to have to stop this North Carolina slander.
What's it going to take
for the slander to go away, Andy?
I'll tell you right now. Drake May was awesome again. They beat
5 touchdown passes, bud.
Yeah. But here's the better part if you're a North Carolina fan. North Carolina outscored Pitt in the second half 28-7. The defense showed up in the second half.
North Carolina plays Virginia, Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, and NC State. Like this.
Congratulations on your coastal title, Tar Heels.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
Let me ask you this. I'm just so ready to start the playoff contender, not playoff contender discussion. We'll put it off. We'll let people, have a reason.
We have to have at least one more commercial break before that.
We'll have a commercial break at the end, but this team is a discussion point in my opinion. Now,
Ooh.
I don't know if they're.
No. If they,
I don't know,
are
like
a 12-1 ACC champion, sure. Oh, but
they got their doors blown off by Notre Dame, though. I don't know if you come back from that.
That is a problem. I do want to point out one other game in the ACC, though, if I can. That was highly entertaining, probably to only me at the end. Virginia, Miami. 9-9 in regulation.
That was a sickos game.
It was an absolute sickos game. There was a sequence at the end of regulation before Miami kicked the tying field goal where they spent 10 minutes trying to figure out what the clock should be, what down should be. It was, and then the referee gets on the mic, and I assume you've watched South Park, right?
I have, yeah.
You know Mr. Mackey, the guidance counselor. But drugs are bad. I'm good.
Okay, yeah.
The referee in this game sounded just like Mr. Mackey.
Drugs are bad. I'm good.
So we're gonna go to overtime, gentlemen. I'm good. And I'm gonna flip this coin. It's a head and a tail. I'm good. And whoever wins will decide if they're gonna play offense or defense. I'm good. And it was amazing. It was great. So they ended up going to penalty kicks. You know, once you get past into the third overtime penalty kicks. And Miami won 14-12. So a score that people who didn't watch the game, which was almost everyone, would be like, oh, they scored 2 touchdowns. No one scored a single touchdown.
Even in the overtime periods where you get to start in 25-yard line.
Exactly.
Yeah, zero. I don't. I think the Miami discussion is kind of a Wednesday show. I don't know if it fits well into tonight, but hey, good for you, Mario. You stopped the skid of losing 4 out of 5.
Stopped the bleeding. Yes.
You stopped the bleeding a little bit, got the win, and you can kind of collect yourself. And the biggest win of the week, by the way,
Florida
for
State's
Miami
down there next week. Cormani McLean.
Yeah, happening on. I mean, Florida was the favorite there. I don't know what it's like in Gainesville. You tell me. That was a tough pill to swallow.
DEFCON 1 in Gainesville right now because they just got beat by the team that they're supposed to be getting the 5 stars to combat. And it was a bitter pill. But Florida State coming down to Miami next week. Florida State beat Georgia Tech on Saturday. Mike Norvell's out for blood because Miami is doing these things on the recruiting trail. And so this is Mike Norvell's chance to say, hey, you sure you want to go there?
Andy, I think that we need to work in a Florida show at some point. I think there's a lot to unpack with Florida, a lot to unpack with Miami, and a lot to unpack with Florida State.
I'm going to have to call my friends over at Big 3 Roll-Up and make sure it's okay. We traverse on their territory.
Yeah, you tell me. I don't want to do that, but
I think we can handle that. But yeah, this is going to be pretty interesting in the old Sunshine State because nobody's really happy. Florida State is the happiest, I guess, but they're still not happy.
Which is crazy because I think that they were the team that I would buy the least amount of stock in right now.
Oh, I think they're playing the improvement, while gradual, is noticeable and consistent. And if he can just improve the roster, if Mike Norvell can just improve the roster.
Oh, you mean the hardest part?
Yes, the hardest part. I got you. I know.
If you had to buy stock in the future, the next 7 years of Florida State, Florida, and Miami.
Oh God,
Florida State is last, right?
I don't know. Because they might have the best on-field coach.
Save it for the Wednesday show.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've already delved into the sickos games anyway. Why don't we go for the sickoest game of them all?
If it's not Iowa Northwestern, I'm going to sleep.
When we come back, talking Iowa Northwestern. We'll be right back. I have 10,000 pictures of my kids on my phone, but I have no idea how I'm going to compile all of that into an actual story for them. Artifact completely solves this problem. At the end of each year, they create a narrated video yearbook about each of my kids. Artifact sets me up with a professional interviewer to talk about my children throughout the year. I add photos whenever I want, and the whizzes at Artifact edit it all together into a video yearbook. It's easy, fun, and affordable. The grandparents absolutely love it. And you know what? One day, it's going to be an amazing gift for the kids themselves. You might remember that Artifact is a longtime sponsor of this show. They still do life stories of older family members, but now they have a product for parents like me, watching my kids grow up way too fast and wanting to hold on to those memories while they're fresh. You can sign up to try it yourself for less than $9 a month when you use my code STAPLES at checkout. So go to heyartifact.com/kids and enter the code STAPLES to get started. That's heyartifact.com/kids and enter the code STAPLES. We're all back in our routines now. It's football season, school's in session. Kids are doing a variety of activities. There's a lot going on. You know what you don't need to be doing? Going to the grocery store, chopping up stuff, cooking stuff. That takes a lot of time that a lot of days you don't have. What you need is Freshly. Freshly fits your lifestyle with plans tailored to every dietary preference. These are meals that are fresh, not frozen, delivered to your door, and you can heat them and enjoy them in just 3 minutes. No cooking, no dishes, and no trips to the store. They have a huge selection. We've got a celiac person in our house, so we need gluten-free stuff. They have an amazing menu of gluten-free food, and every week they're adding new recipes, new dishes, and it's tremendous. And you don't have to chop a single thing. So skip the grocery store and the dirty dishes without relying on frozen dinners or takeout. Meals arrive cooked fresh every week, and there's always something new to try. And now you can try Freshly and lock in huge savings across your first 5 orders. Take advantage of Freshly's sale right now and score a special deal. $125 off your first 5 orders at freshly.com/Andy22. That's freshly.com/Andy22. Freshly.com/Andy22 for $125 off your first 5 orders. Welcome back. We're going to talk about an offensive explosion in Iowa City. 398 total yards, 220 passing yards, 7.3 yards per attempt, a very respectable number. Also 5.1 yards a carry. The Iowa Hawkeyes beat Northwestern 33-13 in the Sicko Bowl. Ari, how did Scott Frost lose to that team in Ireland?
I was just going to say, I didn't know if you were going to bring it up, but I'm like, that team beat Nebraska.
That team
beat Nebraska. I was waiting to like add that, and you beat me to it, and I'm upset about it. Yeah, I don't know. Listen, I don't care what you have to say about Northwestern's defense. Iowa put up 30 points. And I believe they were all offensive points.
33
points. So, I don't care about who the opponent is.
They almost had a 100-yard receiver. Almost.
Don't care who the opponent is.
By the way, even after this offensive explosion, do you know that Iowa is 1 behind Tennessee receiver Jalen Hyatt in touchdowns this season? 14 and Iowa 13.
Oh, man. They get all the credit in the world. They are improving. I didn't watch Kirk Ferentz's news conference after the game, but if he was basking in the glory of improvement, you know what? You have your week, King.
Yeah, exactly. You had an offensive blowout. This is exactly what you needed. This is the medicine.
We're talking about a team here that beat South Dakota State 7-3. Let's be clear.
Correct.
I don't care how far behind Northwestern is defensively. They had to put up 33 points against a conference opponent.
They did. Although that's the one team Nebraska beat last year too. That was Nebraska's one Big Ten win last year.
I won't hear it. I'm not going to hear it.
All right. We're all praise for Iowa today. All praise for
Iowa. They're back. Just say it. They're back.
They're back. Till they go to West Lafayette next week. They're back. So
watch Iowa rattle off 5 straight wins, and then that's enough to confirm that they're on the right track for Kirk Ferentz, and they just run it back next year.
Speaking of teams that can't score 30 points, Ari, Texas A&M finally broke 24 against an FBS opponent on Saturday night.
Sure did.
Unfortunately, Ole Miss.
What would you have set the over/under on total offensive points between Iowa and Texas A&M coming into the day? Would it been over 50?
It wouldn't have been 60, which is what it was.
Yeah, it went over.
They played the kid, Ari. The kid looked good for 2 series, and actually
the kid threw up 338 yards and 4 touchdowns, pal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's true. So now it was against Ole Miss's defense, which has made everybody look better than they've been for the last few weeks. I realize Ole Miss has only lost 1 game, but I mean,
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I don't think either Texas A&M quarterback has thrown for 338 yards in a game. this year.
No, this is the first time that has happened. So congratulations to Connor Wegman, but they still lost.
Looked like a freshman sometimes, but looked exciting sometimes.
Connor Wegman took a massive shot on that last touchdown. Was it the last touchdown drive? Or maybe it was the field goal. Or no, they scored a touchdown. That's right. And then they needed a field goal. They kicked off instead of onside kicking because they had all 3 timeouts, which, by the way, worked. They got the ball
Which
back.
is a shame because we know Texas A&M's a great onside kick team if you watched last week's game.
But Wegman took a huge shot. It looked like he was talking to a trainer and Jimbo told him to get back over. I don't know who he was talking to. I guess we'll find out later in the week. But Wegman looked pretty awesome. The last drive was, or last possession was pretty uninspiring. But Lane Kiffin had a few jokes to crack. Cole Kublik asked him what his ideal Halloween costume would be, and Lane goes, "Oh, maybe Jimbo has a Joker costume for me." And then Lane, of course, praised his running backs against, quote unquote, all those 5 stars. One of his running backs was a 5-star, by the way. Zach Evans,
he was
5-star recruit. So, but listen, the offense for Texas A&M looked better. The defense was troubling. Like, Ole Miss is going to try to run the ball down your throat. And boy, did they ever try to run the ball down Texas A&M's throat. And Texas A&M could not stop them nearly enough.
Yeah, I mean, 31 points to Ole Miss is respectable, though, right?
I guess.
Honestly, Andy,
when you have all those, listen, and I'm not going to do all those 5-star thing. I almost said it. The 5 stars are young, but the people who are older on Texas A&M's defense were high 4 stars for the most part, and some of them were also 5 stars.
But you asked Jimbo Fisher before the game, Ole Miss only scores 31. He takes that instantly, right?
I think he thinks he's going to lose because at that point they've not scored more than 24 against the FBS opponent. Now,
listen, all I thought while watching what I watched of that A&M game was, why didn't this kid start last week coming out of the bye week?
Well,
and you know my temperament, so maybe I'm just a nut bag.
I think all the fans at A&M are asking, why didn't he start after they lost to Appalachian State?
If they used the entire bye week, the 2 weeks there to get him ready for South Carolina, I think they win that football game.
I think you're probably right about that. Well, no, because then they still wouldn't have gotten the center ready to do things correctly. They still would have been using a verbal kick at a very loud stadium, which would have caused false starts and probably a fumble.
Yeah, they might not have been down 7. Oh, they probably still would have been down 17-0 in the first 4 minutes of the game. But
they still would have given up a 100-yard kickoff return.
I thought that was an encouraging thing to see for Texas A&M. Like, for his first start, putting up the yardage and throwing the touchdowns that he did, I thought was a pretty encouraging thing to see out of the kid.
I think so, too. Let's stay in the SEC West. Arkansas goes to Auburn. The final score is 41-27. It actually wasn't that close. This was a beatdown. Auburn's bad. They're 2-5 now, or 3-5 now. Can we just dispense with this? The news came out on Saturday, first reported by Pete Thamel, that Auburn is going after Mississippi State Athletic Director John Cohen as its AD. From talking to people today, it feels like that's going to happen, that they'll come to fruition on that deal, and so they'll have their AD. Just get rid of it. Right, Brian Harsin's
do it already. I'm
check
tired of being near my phone on Sunday. I just want to relax.
Well, I think you may get your emergency podcast tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think there's a good chance.
Okay. It's just let's get it out of the way so I can go back. I just want to go to a pumpkin patch with my daughter.
I don't understand what the point is to go forward with him. It was very weird because for those who don't cover games very often, usually there is probably, there's about 20 or 30 minutes between when the game ends and when the coach comes out for the press conference. It was almost an hour and a half on Saturday for Brian Harsin. What the hell was he doing for 90 minutes? So that's everybody's wondering, is it happening now?
Balancing his checkbook?
Maybe. As we were discussing this at 1:38 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday morning, nothing has happened yet officially.
Yeah.
So it feels over. It feels like there's no reason to keep going with that. They got to go to Starkville next week.
I mean, hasn't it felt over for like a month?
Yeah, and I think that the thought is, well, we don't really have an interim that we trust. We don't know, because I would assume you're going to make the interim either Zach Etheridge or Carnell Williams, because those are Auburn guys. But they're younger. They've not really been coordinators or anything like that. So putting them in charge of the program, there's some risk to that. But there's risk to just letting Brian Harsin coach the season out too. I mean, it's bad.
Yeah. I mean, who cares? Yeah, who cares? I mean, I don't know. The interim head coach has to be the coach that kind of stabilizes the recruiting front. So I understand if you're a little bit worried about.
Yeah, but that's why you make it one of the Auburn guys, because they
make it one of the, I mean, it seems to me like a pretty straight line.
Yeah. Zach Etheridge was a captain on a national championship team in 2010. Cadillac Williams was the best player on an undefeated Auburn team in 2004. So
and his name is Cadillac.
Yeah, also yes, that's true. But both of them can say, here's what Auburn can be at its best, and mean it. And you don't have to worry about them whether they're going to have jobs at Auburn next year or not. They're still going to say really nice things.
I mean, think about the recruiting graphics you can make with the name Cadillac.
Oh, 100%. 100%. So, but it needs to be done. And that's all there is to it. Before we get to the segment you want to get to, because I do think we should close with that, let's head to the Pac-12, because I think this actually gets right into that segment. Oregon keeps on rolling against Cal. Bo Nix.
The most interesting team in that segment, in my opinion.
The Bo Nix-assance. Yeah, well, they are because of one particular result. And then UCLA, as we are recording this, UCLA is up 38-13 on Stanford with 4:11 to go. They're going to win this game. So they're in good shape. UCLA got Arizona score quite a bit, but they wind up winning that game. No Jordan Addison or Mario Williams in that game, but they survive. So 1-loss Pac-12 teams. We still feel like they're in the hunt, right?
Well, that's the next segment, I think.
Okay, let's just
honestly don't know. Like, which team is more attractive to the playoff right now? Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Is it USC or Oregon? Oregon looks much, much better than USC right now, but USC hasn't been blown out by anybody.
True. This is true. Oregon blown out by Georgia. Now, you can make the argument it was game one and teams evolve. I will say this. The way USC has played over the last few weeks, I am not confident USC will make it through the season without taking another loss.
I think I'm with you on that.
So that leaves UCLA and Oregon. And we think it's possible for both of them to go through the season without taking another loss. The question is, which of those is more attractive as a 1-loss Pac-12 champ to the playoff
UCLA?
committee?
Did you say UCLA too?
I did say UCLA and Oregon.
Yeah. Well, Oregon beat the crap out of UCLA.
They did. But in our scenario, UCLA would have to beat them in the Pac-12 championship.
Yeah, I guess if UCLA beats them in a revenge game, that would be the most attractive candidate, because they would have only lost one time, and the one team that they did lose to, they beat. To me, that's the most attractive candidate. The problem is UCLA's non-conference schedule is garbage. Yeah. But we're just talking about the Pac-12 attractive candidates.
Well, but that's a piece of it, though. Like, if they were sitting there with a really great non-conference win, then you'd be feeling really good about it. Instead, they beat Bowling Green and Alabama State and barely survived South Alabama.
Yeah, that's rough. Okay, so let's just map out the resumes here, okay?
Okay.
So UCLA wins out.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game. They finished as a 1-loss team, and the only team that they lost to, they beat at the end.
Yes,
they would be in the
hunt.
Now, that's resume 1.
Yes.
Resume 2 is Oregon running the table, beating the crap out of everybody, winning the Pac-12, beating USC at the end of the year, but having the Georgia loss hanging over their head. Okay?
They would be in the hunt. They would need chaos, but they would be in the hunt.
Right, but
especially if Georgia's the 1 seed.
That's 2. Now USC wins out, beats UCLA in the Rose Bowl.
Yep.
Beats Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game. The only loss that they have is a 1-point loss on the road to Utah. Which of those 3 resumes that I just outlined to you is the most attractive in the College Football Playoff Committee's eyes?
Probably USC.
I'm with you. I think it's USC.
Well, they've also beaten Notre Dame at that point too.
Yeah,
and I realize that's not that big of a deal, but it helps.
And I think UCLA would be 2, and Oregon would be 3.
Right.
And the most ironic part about this, and the reason why I was leading you down this road, is that the best team of the 3
is probably Oregon.
Unfortunately has the worst potential best resume of the 3. So that makes the Pac-12, in my mind, very dicey as it pertains to getting the 4th spot in the playoff.
Agreed. But can we agree that as of today, there are 3 Pac-12 teams alive for a playoff spot?
I think we can agree on that.
Okay.
You can't eliminate any of them.
All right. So we're gonna keep a running tally. So that is 3.
Okay. So let me write them down. USC, UCLA, and Oregon are still technically alive. Okay.
Yes. Let us move to the Big 12.
The Big 12. Let's do it.
TCU is obviously still alive.
TCU is alive. Okay. So Kansas State is out. Even
they
though
have lost to Tulane. So and they've lost to TCU. So they're out in terms of the playoff. Yes.
Okay. That's it.
That's
right?
it.
TCU's it.
Oklahoma State losing on Saturday ends them.
Yeah,
so
that's it. Okay.
It's really TCU. So
there's
and I think they can lose one as long as it's not the championship game.
Okay, yeah, I think so. All right, Big Ten is just 2, right? Michigan and OSU.
Big Ten is Michigan. Well, no, it's not. No, it's not.
Illinois
wins out, which means they've beaten Michigan, and then wins the Big Ten championship game. They are in.
That's right.
So it's 3.
Yeah, Illinois still plays Michigan in the regular season, right?
Correct. And let's not forget that Illinois' loss
is not even a
really
loss.
Bad call against Indiana. They should not have lost that game.
Okay, you're right. Thank you for catching that. You have to catch those if I'm wrong about something. Okay.
No, okay. So we have 3 in the Pac-12. We have 1 in the Big 12. We have 3 in the Big 10.
Okay, let's go to the SEC. Georgia, obviously. Tennessee, obviously.
Yep. Alabama still.
Alabama.
1 loss. I think LSU's out. So even if LSU wins the SEC championship.
Okay, but Ole Miss in?
Ole Miss is still very much alive. I don't think they're going to make it because I don't think they're going to beat Alabama.
But they're every bit as alive as Illinois is.
Very much so. Yes, for the same reasons.
Okay. So now we'll go to the ACC. Clemson's still alive.
Clemson is still alive.
Okay.
And North Carolina is still alive.
North Carolina is still alive. Okay. Are there any group of 5 teams that I'm forgetting about right now off the top of my head that could technically be alive?
No,
okay.
There's no undefeated one.
So here are all the teams that are alive for the playoff. USC, UCLA, Oregon, TCU, Michigan, Ohio State, Illinois.
That's awesome.
Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, Clemson, and USC. The 4-team field will consist of one of those teams.
That's 13 teams, Ari. It's Halloween weekend. That's great.
13 teams on Halloween weekend is it's great for podcasting. Let's put it that way. We're in a good spot.
It is.
And going do you want to try to attempt to rank these now? Or should we wait till Monday's show?
Well, we can't. Yes, let's wait till Monday's show. We've kept people long enough tonight. And also, we do need to preview the Tuesday rankings release. But yes, I think we should do that. Well, and now that and I want all of you listeners and viewers and YouTubers to rank them yourselves because you have the 13. You have those 13 teams. Those are the ones that are still alive for the college football playoff. That's not scientific. That's just logically, those are the ones that still have a chance.
UCLA, TCU, Illinois, Tennessee, Ole Miss, North Carolina. That is 6 of the 13 that we would never have been talking about in the context of the playoff in August. Awesome season so far.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Another beautiful Saturday.
Kansas State lost twice, Sked, just so that's why they're out.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That it's the Tulane thing, and they lost to TCU as well. So they're not getting in. Sorry.
Yes. And I don't know if we'll ever see a 2-loss team in the 4-team field.
True, because there's only going to be two
more
of them
left.
probably. So
yeah. But that is a great list, and I'm very excited to rank them. And I think that we should try on Monday when we do our pod together to try to rank them, give our own rankings. I think we should all do homework, our own rankings for how we would do it, and then a set of rankings of how we think the committee will do it, and then cross-reference them on the following show when we break it down on Tuesday night. Does that sound good?
love it. I love it. I don't necessarily appreciate homework on Halloween. It's a pretty big day in my house, but I will still be sober when we record the podcast. So I think that's really important.
Yes, and I'll wear normal clothes that time.
Also, special guests on the podcast, and I know one of our people who's been watching on the YouTube stream tonight is going to be very interested in how we rank this, and I bet she is going to bring her own rankings too. Catherine is joining us when we're on Monday for Tuesday, and also I believe we're going to try to have Alabama beat writer Aaron Suttles. We're going to have a little LSU Alabama preview on that show. Let's go! This has been an incredible season so far, and we've mathematically proven that tonight. We'll talk to you later.